And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, that's enough. Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
We're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, we're loaded up on this end of the week version of the program with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Jimmy Hyams will join us very shortly. Topics that we will dive into: is Nico a take over the game type of guy? We'll discuss that. Georgia Tech takes the place of Nebraska as Tennessee's upcoming non-conference opponent. Good, bad, okay? We'll discuss this day in Tennessee sports history. Also, we'll get to the stat of the day. So we've got a lot going on the program today. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Dave?
I'm never better. We're going to get into Georgia Tech with Jimmy here momentarily. But initially, what was your reaction? I ask you because you're a history guy, and obviously there's all kinds of history with Georgia Tech and Tennessee. Georgia Tech being a former member of the Southeastern Conference. They probably regret that move leaving, just by the way. But your thoughts on the history of it and the significance of it?
There was up until 2013, Tennessee and Georgia Tech had played more times than Tennessee and Georgia had. And so this was an incredible rivalry back in the day. The history of it: Georgia Tech was one of the first premier football programs in the South. And then Robert Nealon builds Tennessee, and Robert Nealon's protege, Bowden Wyatt, Bobby Dodd, who played at Tennessee, goes on to build a dynasty at Georgia Tech, and Tennessee and Georgia Tech have a pretty solid rivalry in the 50s. When Tennessee won the 1951 national title, they actually shared the SEC title with Georgia Tech that year because both teams went undefeated in league play, just didn't play each other. In 1956, Johnny Majors, what people felt should have been Heisman year, Tennessee won the SEC that year and went 10-0 in the regular season. The defining game that year was against Georgia Tech, who finished 9-1, their only loss being to Tennessee. And then under Johnny Majors, they played Georgia Tech throughout the 80s. So basically, if you are one of the people who considers Alabama a bigger rivalry than Florida for Tennessee, if you're one of those fans, you probably remember the Georgia Tech series being played regularly. For the younger ones, though, the memory is 2017, the only time they've played since they discontinued the series in 87. And that's the game in which Butch Jones brought out the beloved turnover trash can. And
yes,
it was a 42-41 overtime win. Dave, it's the most embarrassing win I think Tennessee ever had. I can honestly say that.
As far as gimmicks, where does the turnover trash can rank as worst gimmicks?
Ooh, man. That might be number one. That was such a dumb gimmick.
I don't understand the turnover trash can. I didn't at the time. I still don't now. Caleb, I don't understand a lot of the gimmicks they use. Miami used the turnover chain, I believe.
At least it's a chain and not a trash can.
I agree. So you take your turnover and you throw it in the trash can. That never made a lot of sense to me. But as far as the Butchisms, I would still say brick by brick is by far the worst.
Oh, when he put a brick under all of his players' chairs when he first met them, he's like, under your chairs a brick. It's going to be part of building this program. Like,
I was not aware of that. He actually put a brick under each of the chairs.
Yes, he put a brick under each of the chairs to show them that you're part of your brick to build this program.
Okay, you do know this, that when he was previously at Cincinnati, he used the pull the rope. So there was a different phrase he's used, and he's had a different one at Arkansas State as well. Does any of that actually affect players? I would argue not.
No, that's not how you motivate them. You do, like, you're right about this. Like, Fulmer had a lot of issues, but Fulmer was an expert in psychology and knowing how to motivate players and get them to focus the way they needed to. And that's the way you do it. The stuff Butch Jones did was just laughable, and everybody kind of knew it. But I mean, I don't know what's worse, the gimmicks Butch Jones did. Oh no, the worst Butchism, the worst gimmick he did, Dave, was the fashion show for Tennessee's jerseys. He did like a fashion runway
Yes, I do
Tennessee
remember
players
that.
to unveil their jerseys. It was one of the most embarrassing things. And like he had the players come in and like turn around and he's like, we got the stripe going down here and we got this and we got that. And I'm like, dude, it looks like you're like checking out a player, checking somebody out, dude. Like back off a little bit.
Now, let me ask you this. Georgia Tech in and of itself as an opponent, you get some more exposure. Pardon me. You get some more exposure into the Atlanta area. Is that significant in recruiting anymore? Or let's go ahead and bring Jimmy Hyams in here. We had a little bit of technical difficulty. Jimmy joins us now. Jimmy Hyams, nice enough to join us. Jimmy, how are you, sir?
Guys, I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. I know we had some technical issues. My apologies on that. Let me get your thoughts on Georgia Tech being the new home and home opponent that will replace Nebraska.
I like it. I think that's a good opponent for Tennessee. It used to be a pretty good rivalry game. One of the all-time great games in Tennessee history was that Georgia Tech game back in 1956 when John Majors was playing for the Vols, and I think it was like 6-0. But it goes down as one of the greatest games that Tennessee has played. I think that was a matchup of 1 versus 2. I do remember some games in the 1980s. Guys, the year that Tennessee in 1985 ended up winning the Sugar Bowl, the week after the Tony Robinson injury against Alabama, they tied Georgia Tech 6-6. Georgia Tech has been a bit of a nemesis at times for Tennessee, but it's an ACC opponent. It's a competent team. Guys that were not only good enough to beat Miami last year, but they took Georgia to the wire, 44-42. So this is a team that in a given year can be pretty darn good. They won a national championship and they shared it. Was it 1990 maybe? I could be 1 year off.
Yes. Yeah, 90 with Colorado.
So I think it's a really good matchup, and frankly, I think it's every bit as appealing as it would be if you played Nebraska.
I do too. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy, I was just saying before you came on the show, funny enough, it's interesting. It's like, you're right. I brought up the 56 game. Also in 51, Tennessee actually shared the SEC title with Georgia Tech, even though they won it all because both teams went undefeated in SEC play. Mm-hmm. Georgia Tech's most legendary coach was a Bob Nealon protege, and Bobby Dodd.
Yeah.
But so I want to know where you come on this, because I said there's 2 generations of Tennessee people who follow Tennessee. Baby boomers and earlier Gen Xers will remember the rivalries, like you said, and the matchups that they had. But anybody younger, the only thing they remember from Georgia Tech is the turnover trash can in 2017. So which one stands out to you more?
Oh, yeah. Well, the turnover trash can. How about that? That was also a game that I remember that, it was a very tight game. Georgia Tech was running this triple option, right? With Paul Johnson. And Tennessee didn't like it because they did a lot of chop blocking. And they were worried about players getting hurt. And they actually, I thought, had a ridiculous scheme. They just played off the line of scrimmage and said, Georgia Tech, if you want to run for 5 yards up the middle, go ahead. And so they did. And that wasn't one reason Tennessee almost got upset. It also, I think, is one of the reasons Tennessee canceled the Army game. They didn't want to go against a triple option where people were chop blocking the defensive line. And so Tennessee backed out of that one. But, I do remember that Georgia Tech game very well. And Georgia Tech, I thought, actually outplayed Tennessee. I thought Tennessee was fortunate to win that game.
You're understating it. That's the luckiest win Tennessee ever had. They had no business winning that game.
Go ahead and click that thumbs up button, the like button. If you haven't subscribed at this point, we greatly appreciate it. We appreciate Jimmy Hyams for taking the time to join us. It is a Georgia Tech team that obviously is based in Atlanta. We used to say back in the day that gave you exposure in recruiting. I'm not sure with social media and the fact that we all have a phone that we're attached to everybody. I'm not sure that's as big of a factor as it used to be, Jimmy.
No, I agree with you. And I do think, obviously, you do want to recruit Georgia. You do want to recruit the Atlanta area. There are a ton of prospects. If you look at the history of Tennessee, some of Tennessee's greatest teams, and I'll even mention the 1998 National Championship team, many of their star players came from Georgia. So when Tennessee's been at its best, they have hit the fertile recruiting grounds of Georgia and done very well. So, but I do think with the national recruiting and the way it goes right now, I don't know that playing in Atlanta is a huge deal in recruiting. Certainly wouldn't hurt. But I do think that the Atlanta area and the state of Georgia are very important to Tennessee in football recruiting.
Jimmy, I want to ask you just on the principle. I know the SEC requires teams to play like one Power 5 non-conference game as of right now. But we also all saw with our own eyes what the College Football Playoff Committee did last year, where they just chucked schedule strength out the window and did not care.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that we don't know what's going to hold for the College Football Playoff after 2025. But given that Georgia Tech's a solid program under Brent Key and it's kind of a program on the rise a little bit, do you think it's really worth it for a school like Tennessee to schedule these type of games where, if they get caught napping, they could slip up, and as opposed to they won't get the reward for winning a decent game like that?
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is, shouldn't you reward your fans by playing some decent non-conference games? So I would go in that direction. And by the way, if you can't beat Georgia Tech, you probably don't deserve to be in the college football playoff anyway. Now, I agree with you that the College Football Selection Committee didn't really care much about strength of schedule. They cared about the win-loss record. I also, and correct me if I'm wrong, are there 3 or 6 new committee members this year? I'm trying to remember.
I think there's 5.
5.
Okay. There was supposed to be 3, and then 2 others like stepped down or got replaced or something like that. So
okay, so maybe those 5 new members look at strength of schedule and decide, hey, that is important. You guys were wrong. So it's a moving target. It's almost like a jury. You get a jury in Atlanta and a jury in Birmingham, and they may have a different decision on a verdict. So I think if you bring in new faces, they may look at what what I'm saying is, you can't really say there's a precedent, because you got new bodies, new minds, new people on the committee who might look and value strength of schedule more so than the previous committee.
Jimmy, what's your take on Danny White's response? Because this is pretty quick. About a month, I guess, since the Nebraska pool happened. Yeah. And he's able to get an opponent that has a little bit of history and a significant opponent in a recruiting area. We downplayed that a little bit, but this is a solid opponent when you're caught shorthanded.
No, I think it's really good. I think they did a very good job. Now, I will say this. I wasn't real thrilled with Danny White being as critical of Nebraska backing out, because Tennessee's history is Tennessee's backed out of their share of games through the years. So I wasn't a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of adding Georgia Tech. I think that's huge. And I think it's a known opponent. It's an opponent that is a quality opponent. It's an opponent that I think fans are interested to watch play, much more so than, let's say, Kennesaw State, right? So I think you do need to give your fans at least one, if not 2, appealing non-conference games, and this is one of them.
Jimmy, what also stands out to me about this is that it's a home and home and not a neutral site. Mm-hmm. I always wondered, why shouldn't home and homes be the way to go? Because don't you get more money with the home and homes than you do having to do a neutral site, where you both split the revenue and you got to pay a promoter for a neutral site game half the times, don't you?
Well, I think it varies from what I'm told. So Tennessee would make a lot of money by having Georgia Tech in Knoxville, but not make so much money by going to Georgia Tech. I think I'm right about this, but I remember when Tennessee played Virginia in Nashville, Tennessee was guaranteed almost $4 million. They were guaranteed a pretty hefty amount. I don't know what Virginia's guarantee was. So I do think that in neutral site games, that financially, if you just play it one time, you come out almost as well as playing a home game. So I don't know if there's a huge financial incentive to play home and home versus neutral site.
Jimmy, if I'd have just thrown this out to you, and obviously we don't know the holes that are available in each schedule, but who would have been some opponents that, if you're Danny White, you would have reached out for?
Well, Georgia Tech's one of them. North Carolina would be another one. Heck, I always like the idea of playing Notre Dame. I think that's been a great series for Tennessee through the years. So I do like that idea. Those are the ones that come to mind immediately. You have recently played West Virginia. You got them playing. You got to be playing them again. I'll tell you another one that I would like to see is Virginia Tech. That would be another opponent. As I try to go west of the Mason-Dixon, gosh, I don't know. They're not many that are too appealing to me that I think are. If you could get USC back on the schedule, or UCLA on the schedule, I think that would be appealing as well. How about Colorado? Hey,
I'm up for that.
Sanders, if you're playing a Deion Sanders team, you're going to get a lot of attention.
Yeah, call it the Boo Bowl since he flirted a lot with Colorado. Virginia Tech's fine. Just don't do it at a dad blame racetrack.
Yeah, where you need binoculars. Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah. Well, I know that wasn't Butch, but it happened under him. We were just talking about the worst gimmicks that happened under Butch Jones. That might have been the worst one, to say to do that. Yeah. Jimmy, just funny enough, we talk about it. And, I think you're a college football history buff like I am. And, you wonder if Georgia Tech had not left the SEC, thinking about them as an opener and them as a potential like permanent rivalry of Tennessee, would they be at the level that Georgia is at in football today instead of Georgia, do you think?
Well, that's a great question. I think they would overall have been better. Do I think Georgia would have still gotten the cream of the crop in the state of Georgia? I do. But I think Georgia Tech would have been better, more consistently at a higher level. I think they would have done a better job in recruiting within their own state, as opposed to Georgia racking up like Georgia has done through the years. So, yeah, I think Georgia Tech would have been better. At the level of Georgia, I would say probably not, but right below them. I'm almost like, well, I don't know if this is that good of a comparison. Almost, but not quite, like Alabama versus Auburn. Okay. Auburn's still really good, and they've had a national championship, but Alabama's a little bit better, right?
Right. I know that this doesn't affect anybody now, but back in the day, Georgia Tech did have higher academic standards, so it was tougher to get guys in. Nowadays, I don't even know if anybody's going to class, Jimmy.
Well, if you're a transfer portal guy, there's no way all those guys are eligible. They're not paying attention to academics. They don't care about academics. They care about how many games they can win and what star player they can come in and hire as a mercenary.
Yep, agreed. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Jimmy, we have seen a year full of Nico Iamaleava. Have you seen enough where you believe he can take over a game? I'm not just talking about playing well. I'm not just talking about filling a role, but he can go out there and be the type of guy who can take over a game, win you a game when you probably shouldn't have otherwise.
I'm not at that point yet, and I'm not going to count some of the non-conference opponents they play. Okay, let's scratch that. Let's talk about what you can do against SEC opponents. I'm not there yet. I will say this. I was very encouraged by this play at Ohio State. I thought he fought. I thought he competed. I thought he played really hard. He ran the ball well. He did the things that you need to do against an opponent like that. But I'm not to the point where I think he can take over a game like Hendon Hooker did. Now, part of that also, I don't think he's got the supporting cast that Hendon Hooker had, in particular at wide receiver. I don't see a Cedric Tillman. I don't see a Jalen Hyatt on this team. I don't see a healthy Brew McCoy. I thought McCoy was pretty good when he was healthy. So I don't know that he's got the supporting cast that would allow him to also take over a game. So I'm going to say I think he's going to have a really good year, but not quite at the take over a game level.
Jimmy, dare I invoke this? You and I saw the same thing in Tennessee's 42-17 loss, same score. The play of Nico Iamaleava was a silver lining that I think we didn't see. Does that resemble the play of T. Martin in the 42-17 loss to Nebraska in the Orange Bowl, which was a silver lining to a lot of people?
It could be. Now, I'm trying to remember all of T. Martin had a pretty good supporting cast, right?
Yeah, pretty good one.
Next year.
Yeah.
His primary receiver was Peerless Price, who was terrific. I wouldn't say he had the year that Jalen Hyatt had, but he had a great year. He caught more clutch touchdown passes, or as many as just about anybody for Tennessee. He also had a great offensive line. He had a great running back group. That's an interesting situation. Maybe it does put him in that position to do that. Look, I think Nico's going to be really good, really good. As you know, I was one of those that said put the brakes on the Heisman talk a year ago. But I do think he's got the potential to be a really good football player. The one thing that I'm interested to see, and I remember talking to Pat Ryan before last year about that. Pat was the color analyst for football and was a former NFL quarterback. How well does he see the field? How well does he see it? I thought Hendon Hooker was great at that. I thought Nico was okay with that last year. But I think with a year of experience under his belt, a year of experience of seeing defenses and doing multiple things, I think he might see the field better and find the open receiver a little bit better than he did this past year.
Jimmy, what did you make of the talk heading into spring camp that Nico needed to be more of a vocal leader? Is that a red flag to you?
I don't know that I think it's a red flag. Most of your quarterbacks, you'd like to be vocal leaders. I don't know if you want to take it to the extreme of Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, but yeah, you would want them to be vocal leaders. I don't know that I think it's a red flag. I just think it was a younger guy who wasn't quite sure of how to be a leader. And so go ahead.
I would start with this. Not wearing pajama pants to meetings when you first show up on campus would probably be a good start.
I would agree. And by the way, I have never worn pajama pants to a staff meeting at the radio station when I worked there.
No, you have not. And I was there for a good bit of them. He has not, Caleb. I'll vouch for Jimmy on that.
So are we all in agreement that that in Josh Heupel's system that you can't just have a quarterback who just does what he's told? You need a quarterback that has to do a little bit of moxie and take over, have a little extra umph to him. Jimmy, would you say that Nico has to have that to succeed in Josh Heupel's system?
Yes, and I think Hendon Hooker had that. I think you have to improvise. Not everything is going to go exactly as it's designed to go, right? So, right. And you see that with point guards in basketball. Not everything went the way Zakai Ziegler thought it was going to go, so he improvised and made something happen. And that's what a quarterback's going to have to do. That's what Nico's going to have to do. And they can sit there and design things and, okay, this should work, and then the defense throws something different at you. You got to adjust. And I think some of that comes with experience. I mean, I don't think Hendon Hooker was as good in 2021 as he was in 2022. And so I look for Nico to make a jump. Will he make that big of a jump? I doubt it, but it also depends on his supporting cast. How much do they help him? So we'll see.
Okay, along those lines then, that extra I don't want to morph it into this, but are we talking about the ability to play more fluid? Are we asking the question, is Nico a little bit robotic? I could see that argument being made, Jim.
Yeah, and I think that remains to be seen as to whether or not he is going to be robotic or whether he's going to ad lib and make some plays. Look, I thought against Ohio State he did some ad libbing and made some plays. I was very encouraged by that. I thought it was one of the better games he played, even though as a team they didn't perform well. But I liked the way he competed and the way he stuck his nose in and ran the football and did those things. So I do think we're going to see a more fluid quarterback having a year under his belt.
Jimmy, we talked about this yesterday, but I actually want to get your thoughts on this. I don't know if you saw Bobby Petrino is working with Madden Iamaleava right now and compared him to Lamar Jackson yesterday. Is there a scary possibility Tennessee got the wrong Iamaleava, or is Bobby Petrino just being Bobby Petrino, which is lying because he is a career liar?
Well, you veil that pretty well. Okay. I wouldn't look. I wouldn't trust Petrino on something like that. I mean, you don't have to go overboard like that. And who knows? I don't know how good Nico's brother's going to be. I do think Nico's going to be really good. Could the brother be? Could the brother be? I haven't seen enough of him, and maybe y'all have. I have no idea how good Nico's brother will be, but I do think Nico's going to be really good.
Yeah, they name him Madden. I'm guessing it has nothing to do with John Madden in the video game. Jim, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm all aboard on that one, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah. I do find it interesting, though, because I know there were some Tennessee recruiting fans who are like, oh, can you get Madden too? I've found that most of the time these recruiting package deals, be it with family or be it with teammates or be it with high school coaches, like guys get a job at a particular university, I've found that those package deals most oftentimes do not work out.
No, I think you're right. Now, if you could have gotten all the Boses, okay, maybe that would have worked. But you said most of the time, and right. I agree with that. Most of the time, those package deals don't work out.
Tennessee, there was the leaks, there was the Clausen's. I thought Rick was upset about his final year at Tennessee. To me, it creates too many moving parts.
Well, it does. And also, And a lot of times one of them is going to be better than the other.
Yeah.
Right.
So
that can create friction.
I mean, I will throw it out there. I think that if Tennessee could have gotten, no disrespect to Casey Clausen, but if they could have landed Eli Manning and kept David Cutcliffe, they probably would have done that in 99 and 2000.
Yeah.
Well,
Eli would have done quite well.
Let me ask you this too, Jimmy, along those lines, which would have had the bigger impact on the program? Chris Leak playing for Tennessee or Jimmy Clausen playing for Tennessee?
Jimmy Clausen.
I think so too.
You guys,
So
really? Y'all think Jimmy
Chris
Clausen?
Leak did win a national championship, and Caleb looks perturbed.
No,
Go ahead, Caleb.
I was going to say, because Chris Leak had some pretty good success at Florida running a system that he wasn't even designed to run.
I think he got help from Tebow coming off the bench on 3rd and 1.
That's true. That's true.
I think that helped them a lot. I thought that Clausen was a really good college quarterback, just not an NFL guy. But I'll say this, he was never as good as he was projected to be either.
Getting back to Nico, we're going to discuss this later from pretty strong comments from Tennessee's coaching staff. I mean, how important is this receiver crew to step up a notch, because they're largely unproven?
It's huge. I didn't think Tennessee's receiving corps was very good last year. Did you?
No.
They got to get better. They got to get open. They got to catch passes. They got to now. And I'm not good on the blocking on the perimeter. I thought they did a pretty decent job of that. But they have got to stretch the field. They've got to make plays, and I just didn't see as much of that. I didn't see them running open as much as I did in previous years either. Now, was that scheme? Did they miss Alex Golish and some of the things that he brought to the table? Maybe. Did the receivers, were they not really smart running the routes? I mean, sometimes you got to break off a route based on what the defense is doing. But I just didn't see them running wide open like I did in some previous seasons for Tennessee. I think these receivers have to step up. They got to make plays. They got to make plays. And I think that's going to help Nico. And when your receivers are making plays, your quarterback not only looks better, but your quarterback also gains confidence, right? So yep. I think it's huge for the receivers to have a big year. The other part of that is too, and I think I'm in the minority on this because I've heard some other people differ from this. I don't see Tennessee's running game being as good as it was. They're replacing 4 starters on the offensive line, including an outstanding center and a really good guard. I thought Dylan Sampson was fantastic. I don't see a running back as good as Sampson. I don't see Tennessee rushing for over 200 yards a game like they usually do, which means what? It means they're going to have to rely more on the passing game, which means they're going to have to rely more on receivers making plays.
All right, Steve says really quickly, let me just ask you guys this. I thought Casey was the best Clausen. Was Casey better than Jimmy, guys?
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
It was.
Well, and he also had that, I may be off on this, I think he was 14-1 on the road. That's pretty remarkable. He beat Florida twice on the road. He beat Alabama on the road. The only loss, I believe, was against Auburn when they had Ronnie Brown and Cadillac Williams. I think that was his only road loss at Tennessee. That's pretty impressive.
Great.
Yeah. And that road loss, Cedric Houston was injured, so Jabari Davis was the starting tailback. I think Tennessee had -2 yards rushing that game, so it was all on Clausen.
Wow, I didn't remember that. Yeah, the negative. Yeah, that's not. Is that bad?
Yeah.
Anything with a dash in front of it's bad.
So, Jimmy, on that note, so what are your thoughts? And actually, kind of a couple questions here, but I'll start with this. Are you more concerned about Tennessee replacing 4 starters on the offensive line or Tennessee's situation at wide receiver for this year?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to go with the offensive line.
I agree.
There haven't been many offensive linemen that have come into this system and been good right away. Now you can say the same thing about receivers also, can't you? But I do think that Lance Hurd is going to have a good year. He mentioned that he was hurt all last season and didn't play to his potential or to his level. But when you replace what I thought was a very smart and competent center, you had a pretty good guard in Spraggins. At Campbell at right tackle, I thought he was just okay. But is David Sanders going to be better than what Campbell was at right tackle? Is Sanders going to be that as a true freshman? It's hard to come in as a true freshman and play in the SEC and be efficient. I'm worried about this offensive line. I think I just think there are a lot of holes and a lot of hope. Now, you hope that William Moy from Arizona, and you hope that what's his name, Pendleton,
yeah,
out of Notre Dame. I mean, you hope that they're able to come in and start to be competent. In this system, your offensive line doesn't have to be great. It just has to be competent. It just has to neutralize the defensive line to give the running backs an opportunity. But you cannot get overpowered. You can't let Georgia come in and just totally wipe you out and destroy anything you're trying to do up front. So if you can just hold your own, that's what you need to do in this system. I don't know if this offensive line can do that.
Yep. Jimmy, go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a follow-up just real quick, because your point about the receivers, while taken, what do you make of the idea that maybe the issue was just last year that Squirrel White was hurt, Brew McCoy probably shouldn't have been out there because he was slowed from his injury, and that they'll actually be better this year because the new crop of guys is actually better than the veterans were last year?
Well, I think that's an optimistic viewpoint. Now, I do think that the receivers were banged up. But on the flip side of that, Caleb, here's what bothers me a little bit. Name the first-year receivers at Tennessee that came in and dazzled. That came in and did really well.
There's not any.
Well, Jeremiah Smith you had an Ohio State receiver and Ryan Williams at Alabama that came in, and they were terrific as true freshmen. And Mike Matthews caught 7 passes. I think, and Schuler has imparted this on knowledge on it. He said that the system is so difficult as far as reading. They require not just quarterbacks to read, but the receivers have to read their routes, that it takes them a long time to adjust. Now, I think Brazel could have a breakout year, but I just think that for whatever reason, it just takes these receivers a long time to get adjusted to this system, which is why I think it'd be hard for me to look at the newcomers that they have, at Travis Smith being one of them, that the newcomers that they have at receiver, that they would just burst on the scene and be great right away. I question that.
Jimmy, great stuff as always. How do we follow your work?
Well, we're doing our podcast. We just interviewed Bert Bertelkamp. Money. And we're launching that today at 1:00. Our first interview with him, and we went a long time with it, but we talk about Bernard King. We talk about Ray Mears. We talk about being Mr. and Mrs. Bearden High School. He was Mr. Bearden High School. Holly Warlick was Miss Bearden High School when they were at school together. But we talked about a lot of things. And also, is it fair to criticize Ray Mears for never winning an NCAA tournament game? Bert talks about that as well. So that's something we launch at 1:00. We hope that folks will jump on board, check it out, subscribe on YouTube. And but it was really good. I thought Bert did a great job doing the interview.
Jimmy, great stuff, buddy. We appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Caleb. Y'all have a great day.
Jimmy Hyams. Nice. Oh, I'm short. I didn't mean to do that. Today's tough question by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln at Nice. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, today's tough question: is Nico good enough to take over a game and win it? Yes, he's got it all. No, he needs help. Where would you fall on that? It'll also be our poll question, and feel free to throw in a comment on the message board and we'll get to that. So yes, he's got it all, or no, he needs help. Caleb?
I'll say, yeah, he's good enough. He's got it all.
Say no, he needs help. When I think of a guy that can take over a game, I think of a Ryan Leaf. I think of Washington State. I think of a Mike Vick for two different reasons, as a guy who can run around. So I will say that I believe that he needs a little bit of help. I haven't seen that specialness out of him. I know that's not a word, but that's where I stand on that. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, here we go. Stat of the day, Caleb. What do we got? It's brought to you by our friends at Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook right down below for the best in sports memorabilia daily updates. Go to facebook.com, Sports Treasures TN. Caleb, what do you got?
Last Friday, Tennessee had a no-hitter for the second time this season. The last time the Vols had multiple no-hitters in a single season was 1976, when it happened 3 times.
Wow. Pretty good stat there. Brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. HDKnoxville.com. Use the promo code HOOK. That's hooked. HDKnoxville.com. Getting back to our earlier question, is Nico good enough to take over a game and win it? And we're talking about a quality opponent. Not necessarily Georgia, Tennessee's best opponent, but not necessarily Kent State as well. General Ursa says, I agree, Dave. Nico needs help. He hasn't showed me anything to make me believe he can take over a game. But, Caleb, you say he can. Can you address that a little further, please?
Yeah, I mean, having watched him at Ohio State, I'm with Jimmy on this. I mean, the moxie he showed at Ohio State, I think, was a very encouraging, underrated silver lining for Nico, honestly. It's something we hadn't seen from him before. That's why I invoked T. Martin against Nebraska in the 97-98 Orange Bowl. Honestly, they were at the exact same stages of their college careers. Interestingly enough, T. Martin at the end of his second year, Nico Iamaleava at the end of his second year at Tennessee. Obviously, Nico had been starting for a year, unlike T. But so to show that moxie, I think, provides a glimpse of what you could see going into this year with Nico Iamaleava. And we'll talk about this in the next segment a little bit. I think I'm a little bit higher on his supporting cast from the skill players than other people are. That's why Jimmy and I are in sync on the fact that the offensive line is a bigger concern. I'm higher on the receivers than a lot of people are.
All right, coming up, Tennessee's tailbacks. It looks like it's going to be a by committee crew as opposed to last year when they just leaned on Dylan Sampson. And when I say by committee, I'm not talking about Deshaun Bishop picking up 20% of the carries as he did last year. That was as much of a one-man deal as you can imagine, but Bishop certainly played a part. We're not to the point nowadays where Walter Payton gets 38 carries, so we're not going that far. But some comments by the University of Tennessee's coaching staff that make me think that this could be a running back by committee. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Why Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your man.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our
Your Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Tune in every commercial break, and you can hear Caleb Calhoun blowing his nose. Caleb, how you feeling?
Oh, I am.
Your mic's still hot, by the way, during breaks. I've learned that as well. Yes.
No, mic should not be hot during these breaks. That's a restream mistake.
Okay. All righty. I heard you blow your nose. That's fine. Caleb and I are both piecing together a morning where he's lost his wallet and I've lost my keys. We were at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting and it was absolutely bonkers. Click that thumbs up button. Give us a reset on the poll question, Caleb, if you can.
Okay. A reset like you want me to start a new poll question?
No. What do we got? Just give us an update.
Okay. Is Nico good enough to take over a game and win it? 72% say yes, he's got it all. And 28% say no, he needs help. So that Kenny Chesney song is coming in, except for it's a he instead of a she. He's got it all.
It's Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. Tennessee is going to depend on a running back by committee group. You can go ahead and bank on that, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Why? Because I don't believe they'll hand everything over to Peyton Lewis. I don't believe Deshaun Bishop is big enough to take the pounding of carrying the ball as a primary back throughout the entire season. So I think they're going to go running back by committee. Now, the question is, I think we can agree those are the top two guys. What if one of those guys goes down? And then you might have to lean on one more than you would have during your preseason preparation.
Yes, I totally agree. I think one of the big things is if you're Tennessee with your running back situation is you don't know if you have a Dylan Sampson again this year, who again just totally threw me off with how good he was last year. And not that Peyton Lewis isn't special, but half of Dylan Sampson's success was how hard he ran. And so with that in mind, I think you would much rather go by committee on this. The question is, are they going to go by committee with 2 backs or 3 backs? Like, is Star Thomas a serious contender in this?
I don't think so. And really, you look at Tennessee and what they have done under Josh Heupel. Caleb, let's go back. Jabari Small and Jalen Wright shared a lot of carries. Then you had Jalen Wright was kind of the primary guy. Then you had last season, Dylan Sampson was the primary guy with Deshaun Bishop as the changeup. I just don't think they want to go any deeper than 2 deep. And I think they're very comfortable if they find one they like Sampson or Wright in that particular year, of leaning on one guy more than the rest of the crew.
Yeah, no, I agree. They want to make it more like 2022 when it was Jabari Small and Jalen Wright in 2023. They really wanted to do that. So I think that Jabari's I think it's probably 2. I think you're right. 2 is probably the way they're going to go with this. Which 2 they use could be a debate. Like, I think it seems pretty clear Deshaun Bishop and Peyton Lewis at this point. But remember, Dave, in 2022, while they had Jabari Small and Jalen Wright, they did bring in Lynn J. Dixon for a week to see if he was going to work.
Yeah, I thought that was a big waste of time. And he ended up booted from the team, less than a week. So now I don't think you're going to see Star Thomas be much of a factor. I mean, if I gave you the over-under of, let's say, 35.5 carries that mattered, I'm not talking about trash time. I mean, would you think that Star Thomas, the third tailback, gets more than 35.5 carries? Real carries, first half carries.
35.5 carries for the whole year?
Yeah, but I'm just talking about real carries. I'm not talking about garbage time.
No. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think he will. Honestly, I think he could get 30. I think he'll get more than 35.5.
But we'll go ahead and bank on it that Tennessee is going to use a running back by committee. Is that where you are?
Yep, I'm with you. They're going to use it by committee.
Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
All right, so Caleb, the more we dive into this, the more I have a little bit of a concern because running backs get hurt all the time in the SEC. What happens if Tennessee loses Bishop or Lewis? Where are they? They're at Starr and Dwayne Morris. That doesn't seem like a good place to be.
No, and Dwayne Morris is probably not going to be playing a lot this year. You're right. So it's Star Thomas of I looking at his track record at Duke. I mean, it's still hard to me to see why they added him. Honestly, he wasn't that special of a running back when he played last year. I mean, he averaged, I believe, 4 yards a carry at Duke. So it was weird why they added him, but it felt like they just want a body and they want to have enough depth to a certain degree. I mean, the more I'm looking at this, I think it's just so obviously going to be Peyton Lewis and Deshaun Bishop. But I think this year, here's what I think is happening. They're more committed to making sure they have two backs at all time. And last year with Peyton Lewis going down, they had to go, not going down, but he played, he was banged up the first half of the season. They had to go a lot more with Dylan Sampson. I think they want to make sure they're not in a situation where they have to rely on just one running back again.
Let me turn to the message board for a second. Derek says Starr might be the number 2. Honestly, if he's the number 2, has Tennessee got a problem? That would either mean Bishop or Lewis either can't play or hurt.
Don't necessarily think means they have a problem.
I do.
I mean, I think he could work his way in.
He's not as dependable as Bishop because he doesn't know the system. He's a year one guy, and we just discussed how year one guys don't have an impact under Josh Heupel, and he's not as talented as Peyton Lewis. To me, he's a big tweener.
I mean, you don't think Deshaun Bishop can be a bit of a tweener too?
Well, I don't mean a tweener in terms of size. I mean a tweener in terms of a dependable, experienced player or an up-and-coming talent. I think that Star Thomas is somewhere in between. I don't think he has experience in the system, and I don't think he's nearly as talented as Peyton Lewis. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't either, but I'm like, he could be as talented as Deshaun Bishop. And now you don't think he has the experience of Bishop. I understand that. Running back's not necessarily similar to receiver in the system, too. Running back's actually an easier thing to pick up.
Okay, now Travis says it's going to be Bishop number 1, and then Derek says Bishop's a walk-on, y'all. Okay, a lot of truth to both of those. Don't be surprised if it's Bishop number 1, at least to start the season, because this coaching staff is very loyal. However, that being said, he is still a walk-on. Now, walk-ons aren't what they once were. Bishop would have been placed on scholarship last year at some point. Probably right before preseason camp, the way the old things worked, or right before the season during preseason camp. That doesn't happen anymore because what does Bishop care? They could just give him more NIL money and he can pay for his own school.
No, yeah, exactly. Like he's not like
scholarship limitation is just silly nowadays.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that. I totally agree. Like scholarship limitations make very little sense because it's coming down to money anyway. And I mean, I wonder if there's going to be someone's going to moneyball this situation to even figure out how they could add like 100 to 115 players on their roster of value. Again,
I think Michigan already did it under Jim Harbaugh.
They might have already done it. Let's take Nebraska for a minute. Steroids aside, Nebraska's powerhouse program in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, Dave, you know this. They were known for having such a great walk-on program. Why? There were no limits on the players on the roster. So Nebraska would go like 150 deep and run all of those players out when they were running the triple option at different times just to wear you down.
And Paul Bear Bryant was famous for giving swimming scholarships to players that would then play football. So, I mean, this managing the scholarship number is not new. This is just a new way to do it, and that's stroke a guy big check.
I never thought about that. Did Tennessee do that with track and field stars back in the day? The guys that went to Tennessee to play track?
No, because they changed that. They changed the rule in the late 70s, I believe. And that is, if you're on football, you have to be a football guy.
Oh, wow, that's discriminatory towards football players. I'm just saying they don't do that with other sports guys on scholarship. Because this is the best way to manipulate it. And if you're a guy like Josh Heupel who runs a lot of tempo, that's kind of an advantage if you can do that, because then you could like Kim Caldwell it and run a bunch of different players out at different times. So I don't know. I don't know. At running backs, Dave, for Heupel's system, are bodies or talent more important in Josh Heupel's system?
At what position?
Running back.
Probably bodies, as long as they run hard.
I think so too. I'm more on the line of bodies than talent.
I mean, Jabari Small had great success. Was he a great player? No.
No, solid player, not great.
Jalen Wright, he was very solid. He was close to great. We'll see what happens with Dylan Sampson, but it wouldn't surprise me if Dylan Sampson maxed out at an Alvin Kamara type of career, which means you're really good. I don't know that it means he's an elite player, even though he's SEC Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, well, I mean, Josh Heupel showed what you do with a player like Dylan, with a player like Alvin Kamara, Butch Jones. But yeah, I agree. Dylan Sampson was very, very uniquely special. Also, we also have to talk about this, and this is what's going to stand out with the running backs this year. A lot of Sampson's success, Dave, had to do with how much teams sold out to make sure the deep ball wasn't going to beat them last year. I mean, they played that 3-3-5 with the high safeties all season long, and everybody's so scared of that Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt season in 2022. Have you noticed the way teams are playing Tennessee? They're just doing everything they can to stop that and make sure that doesn't happen again.
Well, along those lines, when Tennessee comes out in the two tight end look, how many people did they catch unaware because they're worried, as you mentioned, about that deep ball throw? So you run up there in two tights, you've got a blocking advantage, you've got a different look altogether. You should be able to run the football even better. So I wonder how many times, if you went back and looked, Tennessee trotted out the double tights look and surprised somebody with an extra defensive back on the field.
I agree. That's a really good question, actually, because it was kind of interesting how they decided to do that. And so with the two tight ends look, I
guarantee you it took Nebraska by surprise.
Nebraska?
I'm sorry, Oklahoma by surprise.
Oklahoma. Yeah. No. It definitely did. It absolutely did.
It really took Nebraska by surprise because they weren't even in the game.
Yeah, that's true. No, I think teams committing to that 3-3-5. Now, look, I think Josh Heupel had to adjust to it at times. I don't think he was ready for Arkansas to stay in it so long. And so they ran the ball consistently against Arkansas. The only reason Arkansas won that game was because some of the pass protection on the outside and then a fluke penalty by Jordan Ross on a punt cost them. But yeah, I think in general, I think that Tennessee, they want bodies at tailback, but I think they're aware that they're going to have to, I think they're prepared for the fact that running backs might take a little more punishment this year, because I don't think teams are going to leave such gaping holes for them this year the way they left for them last year. They were almost, Dave, let's be honest, because they were so scared of the deep ball, they almost willingly surrendered 5 yards to Tennessee every time on the ground, didn't they?
Yes. Now, I want to be real clear. I want to take a couple steps back. Some people are wondering if I'm criticizing the Star Thomas pickup. No, I actually think that's a really strong pickup. I think he's a solid player at the power 4 level, power 5 level. I think he's a very solid player that's had productivity, that's had some success. I just think it's like the NFL and free agency. He's not going to look at Tennessee, no matter what they offer, and say, oh boy, there's a place to go get a lot of playing time. Now, maybe he does, because maybe that's what they sold him, actually, now that I think about it. You got Bishop, who's undersized. You've got Peyton Lewis, who's unproven. Maybe Star Thomas was sold that he would be the star.
I mean, I couldn't imagine him thinking that. And if they made that promise, that's a dumb promise to make. Like that, how little do they believe in Peyton Lewis then?
Well, but you don't tell Peyton Lewis that. You just tell him you've got a great opportunity to play a lot.
Yeah. I want to address this. A lot of people are talking about this. I mean, how much do you make of? I've been hearing Tennessee's been using the pistol some in camp, and Derek just brings it up. Pistol. They ran the pistol at Duke, but do you think that they brought in Star Thomas because of his familiarity with the pistol? And do you think there's a reason they're switching over to that some?
I don't think you do it because of one player, but I do believe that if I'm Josh Heupel, I'm looking every single offseason at how to adjust this offense, because as explosive as it was in 2022, it was pretty simplistic. So I think that there's an ability to figure it out, and you better have a changeup. Daniel says, totally random, but Dave and Caleb, this is my new favorite Vols podcast. Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, because Dave, we talk about Josh Heupel and adjustment all the time, and the 12 personnel last year was a big deal. But like, if Josh Heupel is running the pistol in spring camp, which I've heard reports that he is a little bit, do we think? I mean, that's a huge testament to him on this. And look, I think one of the reasons
not any more than two tights.
No, I agree. I agree, not anymore. But it also, here's the thing, that also would suggest that he's trying to do more A-gap run plays next year. Because remember, if you're more of a run-oriented offense, it's a handoff to the running back from your side is not the best way to get the running back going, right? It's best for them to be running from behind you and taking the ball and to pick up a level of steam. So I think that, I mean, you almost wonder, do you think that he's thinking even more of having even more of a rushing attack this year than he had last year?
Possibly. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Hang tight. Coming up, we will have This Day in Tennessee Sports History. Also, the top 90 quarterbacks since 2000. Which ball made the list, or balls, should I say? More after this. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln, Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Welcome back. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. I'm not sure what's going on here. It appears as if other hosts are being randomly taken apart, attacked on our message board, which is fine. Just don't attack us. We appreciate that. We're not perfect, but we're close. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Listen, I need to tell you something. There is not a single car on the lot at tedrussellford.net or tedrusselllincoln.net that has any tariff on it. So that's not happening now, and that's what we're hearing from the higher-ups. But I'm telling you, you can go shop right now. East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. They have all the cars on the lot that you could possibly dream of, whether it's used cars or not. And the deals you'll get, we're talking employee discount pricing as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford.
That is not the music that we're supposed to be playing, Caleb. Let's try that again. Oh, okay.
I feel like I'm getting a massage.
Yeah, really. So, yeah, it's a good thing it's not, Asian music. There we go.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb Calhoun. This day in Tennessee sports history is what?
10 years ago today, the legendary Ray Graves passed away. For those who don't know who Ray Graves is, born in Knoxville, played for General Neyland and the Vols during the golden age of 1939 to 1941, where they went undefeated in 39, untied, and unscored on during the regular season. And then in 1940, also went undefeated in the regular season and captured a national title, played under John Barnhill in 1941. But he's most famous for, after his time at Tennessee, he became the head coach of Florida, Dave, and was really the first to really build up Florida in the 60s. Coached them from 1960 to 1969. Was part of the group that invented Gatorade, funny enough, because he wanted his players. Yeah, he wanted his players to be recharged a little more when they lost fluids. Also was the guy who landed Steve Spurrier out of Tennessee. I don't know if you guys know this history, but Florida's entire history is built off former Tennesseans. Okay, the first head coach to really bring them to relevance was Bob Woodruff, who also played under Robert Neyland, and he coached Florida from 1950 to 1959. They replaced him with Ray Graves, who also played under Robert Neyland from 60 to 69. They replaced Ray Graves with Doug Dickey, a Tennessee coach. And then in the 90s, obviously Spurrier takes them to new heights, and Spurrier's from Tennessee. But Ray Graves was probably between Dickey, Woodruff, and Graves was probably the biggest of all of them in really building Florida up to new heights, even though he played at Tennessee.
You're welcome to top Caleb on a daily basis as far as this day in Tennessee sports history, and Daniel may have done it if you can verify this. We first used baby blue for the Lady Vols on this day in 1968. Is that true? Because that's pretty good if that's the case. I'm excited about that. Off the Hook Sports is great. Thank you. We appreciate that. Dave has been an insider since 1990. I'm old, but can we confirm the baby blue?
It happened. It started in 1968. I don't know if it was on April the 10th.
Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty good. He may have topped you there.
Oh, he would have topped me. He would have topped me. Where would I have found that? You know?
I don't know. I don't know. All right, 4 Downs is right now, and it's brought to you by our good friends at Double D Piping. 4 Downs, we talked some Tennessee quarterbacks. If I first throw this at you, the top 90 quarterbacks since the year 2000, just face value, you would have said Tennessee would have how many quarterbacks on that list?
I'd have said 2.
Who would they have been?
Hendon Hooker and Josh Dobbs.
See, I would have had Hendon Hooker and Casey Clausen.
I think Casey Clausen, while I think as Tennessee fans and those who cover Tennessee are very high on him, I mean, Casey Clausen never put up the numbers to be historic in any way when he was at Tennessee. No one was going to put him in a certain category because his numbers were solid, never great. They never blew you away.
There's one number, though, that I think would have changed the way he's perceived totally. Let's get to 4 Downs, brought to you by Double D Piping.
Come on, guys, it's game time.
4 Downs. Can you count? 4 Downs. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun.
All right, first down is this, Caleb. How much would it have changed things with Casey Clausen had he won that 2001 SEC championship game? Would he be on this list? I say yes.
No, he would not. It would change things in a lot of different ways, but Casey Clausen, again, these are numbers based, and Casey Clausen, not his fault, by the way, because as Casey Clausen was getting more experience and more veteran, he never had a collection of receivers to throw to after 2001. I mean, his go-to receiver in 2002 was Leonard Scott most of the year. And in 2003, James Banks, who was a converted quarterback, was his go-to receiver. So he never had a good supporting cast, but they're basing this off certain numbers, and Casey Clausen's numbers were very human from his whole career at Tennessee.
Okay, I disagree. I think if Casey Clausen wins that one title, you view him much differently than you would have otherwise. Now, let's get to second down. As we remind you, 4 Downs is brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
All right, second down. Does Eric Ainge have any argument whatsoever to be on this list?
No, Eric Ainge has no argument whatsoever. He had the trajectory on that list after his freshman year, but his sophomore year was so bad, and he got very good his junior and senior years, but not to be in the top 90 on this list.
If he wins the SEC title, does it change things?
No. Again, these are stats based, and
yeah. See, I understand they're stats based, but just
and this is ESPN's list of the top 90 quarterbacks since 2000, just so people know.
But just the perception of it, to me, and this may sound unfair, but I would have looked at Eric Ainge as he won it because of him and an assemblage of talent around him. I would have looked at Casey Clausen, even though he had plenty of talent around him. Maybe this is unfair, as the leader of that group, and he would have deserved more credit than just your average quarterback winning the championship. Is that a reach?
No, I mean, I get it. I mean, I think they're on the fringe almost off. And look, some of these quarterbacks on here are like, they're on here because of who they played for. So just so you know, this is going to make Dave's head explode. Ken Dorsey's on here at number 41. Ken Dorsey has no business being on this list. Okay, that guy was the most average quarterback ever and just happened to play for Miami when Miami was loaded with talent. And
I agree with that, but I don't understand how you could leave him off with the success he had. I mean, the quarterback is still win-loss record is no way to judge a quarterback. Can we agree on that? But it is used that way. Whether we like it or not.
It is. I just think that I would take Casey Clausen over Ken Dorsey, and I would take Eric Ainge over Ken Dorsey. But I mean, Ken Dorsey completed 56% of his passes. So, you know, it's like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
We'll do it.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Josh Dobbs, you think
we just did second down.
Oh.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
All right. So you think Josh Dobbs should be in this crew, right?
Yes, I do. I think Josh Dobbs had the second most productive overall season for a Tennessee quarterback in 2016, only to Peyton Manning in 1997. if you look at total yards, total touchdowns, and all that, Dobbs that season was the second most productive, only to Manning's 97 season. That's something I can't ignore. And Josh Dobbs almost is a Condrich Holloway-like figure to me, because they both took over at Tennessee at a period when the program was going downhill, and they just stopped the slide and created an illusion for like 2 or 3 years that it wasn't going downhill because of how great they played.
All right, I can roll with that.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Fourth down is Tyler Bray. All the talent. He doesn't deserve to be on this list.
Numbers, you can really make a strong case. That 2012 season, he put up insane numbers, but nope, doesn't deserve to be it, because Tyler Bray was, again, I've told you guys this before, worst intangibles probably of any quarterback I've ever seen in Tennessee history. I mean, ever.
James Banks.
Well, he wasn't a real starting quarterback, but
right.
Yeah.
But if you want to consider him a quarterback, that would be worse.
Because I guess we could throw Brent Schaefer in there too. Pretty bad intangibles. But
with a baseball bat. Let me ask you this: of the group, you've got an opportunity to have a starting quarterback next year, this upcoming season. You've got Casey Clausen, Eric Ainge, Joshua Dobbs, Tyler Bray, or Nico Iamaleava. Who are you picking to take over this football team right now? Is it still Nico?
Still Nico. I'm still going Nico. Now let's address this.
Casey.
No, it's Nico. It's definitely Nico. Nico's got a better arm than Casey. He does. And he's a little more mobile. The thing is, Casey was less mobile than Peyton. Like, we forget that. Now we got to address this.
You can work any good passing offense. You can work around a quarterback that's not mobile, or it's not a good passing offense.
Okay. But I still think you want the mobility. Now let me ask this. Let's go here. The one quarterback from Tennessee on this list was, no shocker, Hendon Hooker, number 89. He was behind Max, or he was 89, just barely made it, one spot ahead of Max Hall. Dave, if you had to pick one quarterback from Tennessee, would he be Hendon Hooker because of what he did in 2021 and 2022?
Yeah, it would probably have to be Hendon Hooker, right? I'm actually going to leave him out of our voting because I think it's so easy.
Well, we already saw what he would do. Yeah.
So if I could take any quarterback for this season, it would be Nico, Casey Clausen, Joshua Dobbs. Who do you want to be the fourth option? Eric Ainge?
Yeah. Well, okay, hold on. Let's throw out Nico, okay? Because you want to see if they will take Nico? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Nico, Casey Clausen, Josh Dobbs. Yeah, I guess throw Eric Ainge in there. I mean, Tyler Bray, I think technically would be the best fit with that arm, but like.
Yeah, but he's also chucking stuff at the local
chucking beer bottles into cars.
Beer bottles at cars and doing crazy stuff.
Oh no, trying to throw them into trash cans and missing and hitting the cars. And then Derek Dooley's asked about it later and thinks it's funny to make a joke. He's like, I'm more concerned with his lack of accuracy than I am him, throwing bottles at cars. I'm like, really? That's like people's like property that's being vandalized, and that you think it's okay to make a joke right there?
Yeah, I hate to go out on a limb, but I think Derek Dooley may have been in over his head.
Just a little bit.
Okay, so do we have the clip from, is it Kelsey Pope that talks about Mike Matthews and the impact that he has to have, and he has to be the guy? Do we have that ready?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, let's go ahead and play that right now, because the question we have for you is Mike Matthews, is it Mike Matthews or bust for Tennessee's receivers? And when you hear this quote, you'll realize why I surmise this. It seems like they're putting a lot on Mike Matthews. Here he is.
All right, here is Kelsey Pope right now. Pulling him up.
He's took a jump in just his day-to-day process. Like, he comes to work with a like mentality every day, like to want to get better. I think there's still a ways to go in the consistency area. I think that happens naturally as a young player with him being the second year in his offense. But what I have seen and what I have enjoyed is the way he can piece every single snap, which is a jump from, what he was as a true freshman. He's one we're going to count on. He's one we're going to expect a lot from. And he's one that's going to meet the standard every single day. He's done.
All right, he's one that we're going to count on. He's made a big jump. So we're talking about a guy who was arguably a little bit immature last year, and now this year he's expected to be the guy. This, to me, could go south in a lot of different ways if he's not able to handle the pressure, if he doesn't play at a high level early, if he still has some of that immaturity. And I don't know who the answer is elsewhere. I mean, last season, if you would have told me that Brew McCoy's not going to be explosive, which he wasn't, I would have said they could go with Squirrel White or Chris Brazel. Well, you still have Brazel, but the point being is, Caleb, I don't think the receiver room is as deep as it was a year ago. So what happens if Mike Matthews isn't ready? You may have a real problem.
Yeah, Mike Matthews. I think what Kelsey Pope said in that clip is very alarming, if I'm going to be honest with you, because he threw out, just straight up threw out, that he said he doesn't compete. Well, he said he competes every play, competes play to play, which he didn't do last year, or is a jump from where he was last year. I'm like, so he wasn't competing play to play last year? Like, that's kind of a mentality thing for me. And I'm wondering, you're right, like if he's not getting a lot of catches early, is he going to just start taking plays off? And I mean, that's a real problem. And Mike Matthews, I think this offense needs Mike Matthews. Everything about it hinges on Mike Matthews. He's the one receiver who can dictate coverage, who has experience in the system right now. And so I really think that if you don't have Mike Matthews, then you miss out on a huge advantage for this offense.
Wow. But what if he just turns an ankle? I mean, what if he just gets hurt?
Oh, I know. I think you're in trouble. Now you can still adjust. I mean, last year Brew McCoy was slow when Tennessee adjusted and went 12 personnel, as we talked about. But I think if Mike Matthews, so you could still be fine. But for the offense to take that step that everybody wants it to see from 2022, Mike Matthews has to be fast, and Mike Matthews has to be key, and he's got to be able to dictate coverage.
Again, they had an idea that Brew McCoy wasn't going to be as explosive as the previous season. I mean, they had to see that in preseason camp. You're putting an awful lot on an underclassman here who's a sophomore who barely played. And it's one thing to say you're going to do that with Peyton Lewis because you have a Deshaun Bishop and you only have one position, running back, to fill. It's another thing entirely to think that Mike Matthews is your answer. And he showed both immaturity last year with not being consistent, which Kelsey Pope just alluded to. He showed immaturity with going and getting more money, in my opinion, out of the NIL portal fund and coming back. I don't know that this is the guy, and I don't know Mike Matthews really well yet. He hasn't talked to the media a lot, but I've got concerns that he's ready to be saddled up with this type of responsibility.
Yeah, I do too. And that's based on what Kelsey Pope said. But he's got some guts. He held out for more money this year. You know, we know that he flirted with the transfer portal over. We agree he flirted with the transfer portal over money, not because he was frustrated about playing time, right?
Well, I mean, just rank them all together if you want. But yes, probably money.
Right. So
I get the feeling that anybody, I mean, when we have these money or playing time conversations, you know, Caleb, if I said I'm going to start paying you $1 million a year, but you're not going to be on the show as much, you're probably okay with it.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean,
I know I'm talking in extremes, but if you went to Mike Matthews and said, this year may not be your year, but we're going to give you more cash to help soothe the pain, I'd say he's okay with it.
Probably. Mike has to show. There's a couple of red flags on this. The first is, well, the second, Kelsey Pope saying what he said is the second. The first is when Nico kind of snitched on his own receivers when he said Brew Carter, you know, brings in that, when he said Brew Carter working out with the receivers brings that like moxie and that extra umph to the group. And it's like, does nobody on the wide receiver core have that umph? You know what I mean? You kind of want a diva mentality on your receivers, don't you? You want a couple of them to be like, I need the ball.
Do you think they're soft?
I think they're content. And I think they willingly shut off if they aren't getting the ball.
Okay. Now, Daniel on the other side of it says that I think this will be our best wide receiver core under hype. Let's take a look at that. It's not going to be better than 2022. Can we agree with that? Tillman goes down. McCoy's a player. Jalen Hott wins a Blitnikoff Award. Squirrel's an up-and-comer. So I'm not willing to go that far. But I will say this. I think that this group could be the most productive in terms of efficiency because they'll settle on 3. I don't think there are a lot of other options, Caleb.
I think there's a chance it could be the best receiving core. Now, let me break down why.
How?
There's a possibility. We're talking about concerns with Mike Matthews here. Again, everything comes down to Mike Matthews. Can we agree that there's a possibility that if Mike Matthews hits his full potential, he could be better than Brew McCoy or Cedric Tillman?
Yes.
Chris Brazo, we think, is already better than Ramel Keaton, don't we?
Yes.
So now we just go to the slot. You bring up Jalen Hyatt. Dave, I mean, I think we've seen enough now. Jalen Hyatt was a total system player. And you don't think Braylon Staley could just do the same thing?
You know, there's part of me that wants to agree with you, Caleb, because Jalen Hyatt hasn't done great things in the NFL. There's another part of me that says, man, he really worked the system well.
He did, but he worked the system well the way Marcus Nash worked the system well in 1997. Or Joey Kent in 1996. What happened? Joey Kent leaves after 96. How is Tennessee going to replace Joey Kent? They get Marcus Nash, and he sets the all-time record for receiving yards in a season. And then Marcus Nash leaves, and Peyton Manning leaves, and Peerless Price comes in, and he's better than both of them. Doesn't put up the numbers because he didn't have Peyton Manning throwing in the ball, but Marcus Nash and Joey Kent were NFL flameouts. They were both just total products of Peyton Manning.
Now, Daniel brings up watch and see day. There's a couple of more that will also be this year. Smith, Boo, Carter. So in order to be the best wide receiver crew ever, I think that Tennessee would have to show they're deep at that position. That would mean Travis Smith, the freshman, or Boo Carter, the defensive back.
And I'm leaning Boo because I could see Boo and Braylon alternate in the slot. You're not going to see much from Travis Smith, guys. What Jimmy said is true. Heupel prefers for receivers to have a year in his system, because of the reads they have to make. When Heupel took over at Tennessee in 2021, it was a lot easier for him to install things because Cedric Tillman was a veteran. Velus Jones Jr. was a senior. He had just gotten Javonte Payton from Mike Leach, who already knew how to handle, receivers in the air raid have to make reads too. So taking that into account, Josh Heupel already had some guys that were either very experienced or familiar with what he wanted to do somewhat. But Travis Smith is a freshman out of high school. He's not going to be able to step in and develop in this system this year. You're not going to see much of him.
Do you think if Josh Heupel had it, if he had 5 talented receivers, he'd ever run 4 or 5 wide consistently?
I think I think the only reason he tampered with that last year is because of the injuries. But I think Josh Heupel takes the Lane Kiffin approach, the David Cutcliffe approach of, I got a go-to wideout, a go-to slot guy, and a complimentary wideout. That's it. And I think that's because that's exactly what I mean. Dave, what's the last team you've covered ever with an elite passing game that went 5 deep at receiver?
Oh, well, I mean,
never happened.
No, I guess not. But
yeah,
that's I don't know. It's a little. You saying they had that much talent, or
they used that much talent?
Because Dante Stallworth was sitting the bench, in 98, 99?
Yes, but wait, in 98, they threw to, what was it? Peerless Price, Cedric Wilson, Jermaine Copeland. That was it. Nobody else.
Right, but it doesn't mean they couldn't have gone deeper.
No, I'm not saying could have. I'm saying that they chose not to. I'm saying they didn't have a 5. I'm not saying a team that went 5 deep, like they could go 5 deep. I'm saying a team, Dave, that had anything more than a 3-man rotation at receiver. What's the last elite passing game you covered?
I don't think there is one, but I think history proved that they could go deeper.
Yes, but the question is, should they? And I don't think Josh Heupel would ever want to, because you shouldn't. So look, I think you go 3 deep. I mean, Dave, what have I talked about all the time? You cover the 05 to 06. Everybody talks about David Cutcliffe turning around Eric Ainge's career, right?
Yes.
Do you not agree
that is that he shortened the receiver rotation? I agree.
Yeah. Robert Meacham. He said that's the guy you're going to throw to every single time. And if he's not there, look for Jason Swain and then look for Brent Smith.
Okay.
Yeah.
Daniel says, great point on Heupel's approach with wide receivers, Caleb. You've convinced me with Smith, but Boo will be productive. Well, do we treat Boo as a second-year player, or do we treat Boo as a first-year freshman, first-year receiver? Because if we treat him as a first-year receiver, he's not going to have an impact. If we treat him as a second-year player, he's got a shot under Hype.
I think because he's been guarding receivers, we'll go 1.5 year. First, he's got a half-year experience. Because by guarding the receivers every day in practice, Dave, you probably have some familiarity with what they're expected to do to a certain degree.
Yes. And Steve says, don't sleep on Amari Jefferson. Steve, here's my concern with Jefferson. He's got the hip injury, and they said he's going to be ready by the beginning of the season. We have been fibbed to about that before, Caleb, so I'm not buying that until I see him run out on the field.
Yeah, I think Amari Jefferson is I think he's going to end up being a very good player at Tennessee. I just don't think that'll be this year. I think this year they're going to...
I'll go ahead and go on record. And if anybody wants to write this down and challenge me in a year and a half, I think he's going to be the star of this offense at slot, but it's not this year.
Yes, I'm on that too. And by the way, he could play the other he could play wide out too, even though he's only 6 feet if he wanted to.
Yeah, I stood next to him and it felt like a slot to me. So I'm going to lean in that direction. But, I mean, certainly he could be bigger. You stand next to Brew or Cedric Tillman, you're like, these guys are huge.
Yeah. No, I could see that.
So I think they want somebody slightly bigger. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Coming up, we're going to get into Tennessee is number what on the top 10 football and basketball schools. Do they deserve it? Stay tuned. More after this. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Here we go. This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Welcome back. Discussions about the Super Dealer from Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. TedRussellFord.net, TedRussellLincoln.net. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. When it comes to legal expertise, that man will go battle for you. I can attest to that. All right, so It is time for Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Hot or Cold will focus on the Vols, as it usually does. And by the way, they're doing pretty good when it comes to, let me see if I can I can't get it to play. Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Tennessee is number 2 on the top 10 football and basketball schools list. Caleb, your thoughts on Tennessee being number 2? I think that's pretty significant.
It's very significant. It stands out, and you can make a case for them to be number 1, given the fact that the school that's ahead of them did not pull its weight in football. I think they're overvaluing just winning a national championship. And I get it. Like, I'm not saying that's not the goal, but I'm saying that, like, if you win a national championship in one and you are just mediocre to garbage in the other, then you're not a football basketball school at that point.
So who's number 1? Are we hot or cold on them?
Florida. And I'm sorry, they went 8-5 last year in football. You can't say just because they won a national title in basketball, they're number 1.
No, and in all reality, I mean, if you look at not just the fact that we're in the South and football is more important, but if you want to look at it from the perspective, Caleb, of revenue and what they bring to a school, you should weigh football at 70% tilt to 25% of basketball.
Exactly, which is why if any school should be number 1 over Tennessee, it would be Ohio State, who's number 3. So Ohio State's number 3. They went 17-15 in basketball, but they won the national title in football. I think Ohio State will take their production at the 2 schools. I think Florida would take Ohio State's production at the 2 schools over what Florida got this year.
There's no question.
Not a question.
Yeah, I'm hot on that.
Yeah, I'm hot on that too. So I'm hot on Ohio State having a case. I'm cold on Florida having a case. Moving down on other schools. Okay.
So hot means that they should be above Tennessee. Cold means
no. I wanted to play hot or cold this way because I want to go a little future. Hot is this team will consistently be a threat to Tennessee on this list.
No, let's just do this. Okay, I'm cold on Ohio State being above Tennessee. I'm cold on Florida being above Tennessee. And the reason is I think they're better in a combination.
Okay. So I'm with you on that. I mean, I have to be honest, I'm cold on both of them too. Number 4, Oregon.
That's hot.
Is that hot?
I'm hot on them. Oregon lost in the second round of the NCAA tournament and won the Big Ten and lost to the national champions in college football. I think Oregon was a step above Tennessee in college football, a step below in college basketball. Tie goes to football. I mean, that's just the rule. Tie goes to football.
I'll roll with that. And who's up next?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thanks, Coop. Go ahead.
Georgia, number 5.
That's hot.
I'm going to take Georgia over Tennessee and say that's hot because of the football disparagement.
Disparity? Yeah, I am. I am too. And Georgia made the NCAA tournament. And there's a football disparity. So I'm hot on Georgia too, for that reason. Duke.
No way. That's cold. I mean, you have to at least be a contender in a championship, right?
Totally agree. Yeah. Totally agree. Michigan.
All right, we're just basing it off 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously cold. Tennessee was better than Michigan in both sports.
Yeah, I would take that. If you wanted to do it over like the past 3 years, then you would have to factor in their national championship. But
right, exactly. Clemson.
That's cold.
Mm-hmm. I'm cold on them too. Ole Miss.
I got to be cold on that.
I got to be cold on it too. Tennessee was better than them in both sports. And finally, the incredible, the devout, the saintly Mormons, BYU.
It's not enough magic underwear in the world that would make me think that it would be BYU over Tennessee.
Nope.
So I will take that as cold.
There's not enough wives you could bribe me with to switch my position on that.
We end a little bit earlier today as I've got an appointment. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Yes.
Breaking news. I just want to add this note because this ties into the topic. Directors Cup standings for winter have come out. Tennessee is number 10 on the list. Second in the SEC to Texas. That includes swimming and diving, men's and women's track and field, men's and women's basketball, and fencing and ice hockey, which Tennessee didn't even have a team for those, but still finished top 10.
All right. We certainly appreciate you. We'll be back at 10 a.m. each and every weekday. We appreciate Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.